All right, we will call the Monday, June 26th, City of Mayor regular city council meeting to order. If we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, does anyone have any additions to the agenda? I'll have one that I'd like to add to number 12. If we could add a request for the additional funds for the internal investigation. And hearing no others, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda with the one addition.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. That will take us to public comments. We will open up to anyone who would like to discuss anything that is not on the agenda. Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comments. We'll move to consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for further discussion?
I don't have anything.
I don't either.
With none, then I'll look for motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. That will take us to an update from the Carver County Sheriff's Department. We have Commander Woleen here tonight. So welcome, Commander.
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. Council, thank you for your time this evening. Just a quick update on where we're at as it relates to staffing. Early in the year, I had been in front of you as it relates to how we were managing our staffing with the 12-hour shift with Corporal Hendricks and liaison assignment. So staffing has been going well. We have 5 that we recently hired that are in training now. We've had to manage some promotions, and unfortunately, we've had a couple of dismissals, which are a result of either determined to be not a fit for the organization or not a fit for the career as a whole, and perhaps other opportunities to be explored that way. But we had 4 start last week and 1 that started a couple of weeks prior to that. And we're progressing through training with them, but it does take time to get there. But it's a mixed group of hires from out of college and entry level to an experienced officer from a community more in the southeast metro. Actually, a little further southeast, Northfield is where I believe he worked. Our CSO, Nathan Schumacher, who completed his schooling to become post-license eligible and opportunity for promotion to licensed deputy. So we look to those opportunities as well as where we can build, grow, and develop our local talent and have an understanding of the county and the communities that they serve with that. So we're excited for the opportunity for Nathan. And another that has joined us has recently completed a military commitment and came back to Minnesota from having been stationed in Alaska with his family, and an opportunity there to begin his career in law enforcement, the civilian side, and not the military side of things. So excited about those opportunities for those candidates having come in. It takes time to get there. We've been managing with what we've had with Brad's schedule, as you're aware, with that 12-hour schedule and how we've done that. We're not yet in a position to transition back to that. I know I discussed that could be Q2 where we could look to do that. With where we're at, and the recommendation is to continue to, or at least maintain through Q3 and evaluate as we come to Q4 if we look at, but potentially, if we keep, if unfortunately not all make it through training, or if we have some other circumstances where all of our candidates don't get through, or we have to make some other staffing decisions or whatnot, reevaluate as we come to Q4 on where we're at with the FTE for mayor, and if we've got to maintain that current assignment, and then potentially what we would look at is, as the contract would stipulate, either unfilled hours come back as a contract credit or whatnot, or year-end credit. But I prioritize having the dedicated presence during the summer as we get through Q3 here, and then reevaluate for Q4. Segueing into some of those staffing discussions and things like that, we've had exploratory conversations, also talked about regionalization, and had gone before the council in both Watertown and early with early discussion of bringing New Germany into the loop as well, as far as what we were discussing with Mayor and Watertown, but having some exploratory conversations, which I think have gone well. Still some more discussion to be had, review of workload data and things like that. And that's what I will be continuing those discussions and evaluation of that with Nick as well as Jake in Watertown. But the city managers have also had their meetings and have gone before both councils and gotten some early information to present to councils as far as what is being explored about a potential regionalization and a partnership that way. We do see that it could be a potential benefit in that sense as far as coverage with having more dedicated time as it's spread out through days a week rather than where we're at right now with the FTE and how we manage that. So, but exploratory conversations and early stuff has been at least seemingly well received as we continue to look at that. So I have open to questions if you had any.
So one, I think is a great benefit for regionalization for all the communities.
Right.
I'm certainly in favor of it. What's the next steps then? What's now the next plans is working towards that or figuring out if it's feasible?
So what I'm looking at right now, as it conveyed to Nick recently, was looking at where we're at with any adjustments with what the current allocation is for what Mayor currently has on the workload, and any discussion if Watertown's shown an interest to increase, which potentially, could bring down anything for Watertown or perhaps even for Mayor or New Germany. But looking at where we're commensurate with the workload to ensure that cities are still paying for the actual services that is work commensurate with the workload in that sense. And so hope to have that information as discussed with Nick by the end of this week, if not next week, as we look at some things. We got some other stuff going on. But I know as council and cities are coming into budget periods as well, that that information in a timely fashion, as well as, and then what it looks like for costing as you come into budget preparation. I know that you're beginning or will be beginning that stuff fairly soon as well, as we look at that. So that's kind of the next step to kind of figure out where we're at with some things, and then present that information. And if Nick and Jake and myself, or Nick and Jake, and how we continue those conversations with other councils.
So if it does switch, if that's the direction we end up going, is that, just from my understanding down at the sheriff's department, is that then just something you can decide and that's what we're going to do? Does it have to go to the
As far
sheriff's
as-
approval?
As far as regionalization,
Yeah.
Ultimately that the discussion and things as far as how we go forth and how it impacts operations of the sheriff's office is obviously the final say would be at the sheriff's level, being the chief law enforcement officer, as far as the organization.
Approval from the commissioners at that level?
In that sense, I think it's discussed, but I'm aware that there's been at least some conversation. I know Nick the city managers or administrators meet was it monthly with the county administrator as well. And so I know that the county administrator, Mr. Hemsey, is aware of exploratory discussions and with whatnot. So I don't know that as far as approval at that level is required, as long as we have it coverage and we have it funded and we're providing public safety services to the citizenry, which is the most important things.
And stay within your budget?
And stay within your budget, correct? Yes.
And the only reason I'm asking is because if it did have to go to the commissioners, I was going to recommend we get Tim Lynch and get him in the loop and
Right.
and kind of talk with him and let him
Right.
know where we would like to see it happen, just so he's
Right.
where we stand. But
I mean, we have,
that's fine.
we've, for the remainder of 2023, we've looked at a partnership that Carver and Victoria have agreed in kind of a pilot basis for 2023. So some shared coverage between the FTE allocations that are there for those two communities, whatnot. And so it was, discussed. Ultimately, the authorities presented to council, and that's where obviously the approvals to have agreement amongst the councils and cooperation that way as well. So, is a lot more of where the approvals are and whatnot. So.
I mean, we kind of have that with New Germany. I mean, we
Correct.
already kind of
You-
share.
Yeah, you have the existing partnership with New Germany and that relationship there. And that's good. And it's bringing, kind of in the northwest region of the county, together and with Watertown and exploring that marrying up of resources and to, better serve the citizenry as far as coverage 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Any other questions?
No.
One other one then, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So in the current contract, it states in there that we must notify you by the end of this month if we don't want any services for 2024. I assume we have some latitude on that while you're kind of working out what direction we're going to go.
Well, July 1st, yeah. If you had some other plan in place for law enforcement services, like you were going to start your own police department and no longer wish to engage in a police contract, then otherwise, we continue then past that. That would be the date. Then we wouldn't, if you were looking to discontinue the police contract that way, and you had some other resources or entity that was providing your policing, being another police department or another city that had their own PD that would be reasonably close, willing to accept that way. Otherwise, typically the policing contracts expire at the end of the year. And then as negotiations continue, it's up to 60 days as long as it's continuing to negotiate in partnership to a successor agreement. We come to that.
Good.
So.
And then how did we net out? You said five came on, but some left. So did we gain?
So I look at net ultimately when they get out of training, and I have them solo patrol certified and on their own. So early in the year in February, we had, let's see, what did we start with back in December? We went back to the best of my knowledge, as I recall. Back in December, we were looking to well, I think it was November, looking to fill to 2, and then we had 2 go to other agencies, and then we had 1 retirement, and Sergeant Pete Anderley, who was a longtime employee of Carver County, ultimately it was his goal to get north, and an opportunity came to be the chief of police up in Walker, and he seized that opportunity to kind of finish out the last phase of his career, and he's doing very well up there. Pete was a great resource in the county with his wealth of knowledge and the relationships he had in Carver County. But quickly that, we went from 2 to 6 or 7 in a month. We hired 2 on in February, but we had a promotion. Sergeant Bujalski moved, which he was covering the Team 1 day shift, which is what Brad is in right now, which necessitated the need in the transition. So if you're keeping track and figuring out how the net, we hired 2, brings it down. Hired 2 more, but then we had 2 leave, dismissed, and probation, so 3. So we're +1, +2, maybe in a net, but ultimately as we get there, and we have another promotion. Corporal Corey Hansen was recently promoted to licensed sergeant. Corey was our county North Car. So spent time policing here in the city of Mayor when he didn't have dedicated coverage. Lives within the county, but got an opportunity for leadership within the organization, and he was promoted effective last week, June 19th. So that also creates an additional vacancy, but been able to continue to afford opportunities that way, as well as promotion and growth within the organization, and then hire on. So looking to make those, but I'm sure it can make you aware, talking to his peers or different things that I don't know that it's just law enforcement as a whole, but recruitment or hiring can be a challenge, finding employees in all aspects of government right now, and the right fit in the right organizations, because economics can be a driver, and people can move quickly.
You're going in the right direction.
Yeah, well, we're excited, and I'm excited about those that have recently started. I think there's opportunity, so get them trained, get them through training, and get them out there serving and what they should be doing. So, but I'm excited about the recent hires that we've had, and pleased with that progress. So,
Any other questions for Commander Willeen?
Nope.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming in, giving us an update, and we'll just keep pushing forward. And
Thank you, Mayor.
And we'll be in touch, I'm sure, and we'll talk more on the regionalization.
And as if anything, there's follow-up questions or anything, Nick can always bring them to me. email or by phone or whatnot, and we'll continue our dialogue on our exploratory conversations. And
Always available, so if anyone needs to speak with him, he's certainly always available, so I appreciate it.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Nick, Janelle, great to see you.
All right. With that, Nick, can we move to the, consider the change orders for the Public Works Building?
Yes, Mayor, just getting there real quick. So we have a handful of change orders related to the Public Works building project, change orders 2 through 7. And if anybody watching is wondering why we aren't starting at number 1, the first change order as part of this project came with the bids and the alternatives. The alternatives that were chosen were considered the first change order as part of this project. So going over the change orders, change order number 2, we discovered that the existing wall panels and trim had an embossed surface on the existing building, and the ones that we had weren't embossed on the exterior side. This is not an interior thing, it's an exterior facing. And upon looking at it, we felt it was normally, when it comes to aesthetic stuff, as if it really doesn't make a lot of sense, we've been foregoing a lot of aesthetic stuff, but this was one thing that we felt would match pretty well to the existing. We felt if you looked at it, you would be able to see enough of a difference from the old to the new building where it made sense to include the embossing on the new panels. And that was a change order of $2,600 to the project. Change order number 3 relates to change order number 6. Change order number 3 had to do with landscaping requirements that were in the contract that the contractor was supposed to do. The back area seeding that, doing some of that work, and then some of the gravel dragging work, get it all back to the way it was. Our public works staff does a fair bit of seeding here in the springtime with various projects. So in working with the contractor, they worked out kind of a swap deal where our staff would take care of the dragging and getting the gravel back to level and where it needed to be and do some of that landscaping work. And that would be a deduct on the contract. So we'd get a credit for that. And then on the back end, number 6, for the exact same amount, adding in alternative number 6 from the original bid package. And this was to expand the doorway between the existing building and the new addition, the interior one. So that came out to be a wash on that. So that's how 3 and 6 are related. They cancel each other out. Essentially, it becomes a wash. Change order number 4 was a deduct. We could deduct the underslab insulation from the apron. We found that that was not necessary in further review with some of the other stuff that was going on, especially with the soils correction. So that could be a deduct. Change order number 5 right on the back of that was a change order add of $11,500, and that was to do some soils correction in the northeast corner of the building. We thought there might be some concerns with the soil there, but in the design of the building, it was designed in a way that assumed there might be some soils correction in that area. And so the cost of getting all the boring samples that we might have had to do in order to figure out if there was a problem, that would have been several $1,000s to do all those bore samples, analyze them, get them back, and do all that. So, and then you would have to change out the soils anyway. So they just kind of did that within the building itself, so we didn't have to spend money on it. And then if we didn't have the soils correction, great, we're fine. But if we did, it was far less than it would have been for the $11,500. And that was a pass-through cost from Henning Excavating on that. There wasn't any markup as part of that. And then again, change order 6 relates to change order number 3. And then change order number 7. One thing we did pick up on is we had talked about gutters on that, and we decided not to go with the gutters. And then we started talking after the fact, started asking questions. Well, what about snow cleats, sheet ice coming off? Because on the front of the building, it's gables like this, but if you go along the doors, it comes off the front. And we talked about snow cleats doing that on all sides of the building, both front and back, but we scaled that back significantly to only the areas which were pertain to it, which is over the overhead doors of the new addition, and then over a portion of the back where the air handling unit is. So the rest of the areas will be free for snow to fall because nothing's going to get damaged on that. So we reduced that by quite a bit just to cover those areas, and that would be $2,855 for change order number 7. Total net cost for everything is $15,705 when you include the deducts as well as the inclusions for the project.
So I'm dialing back on number 7. I understand on the back side of the building or is that the north side of the building?
Yeah.
I understand not having some of it. I think you're putting it over somewhere where some of the equipment is.
Yes.
Sure, but on the other sides where there could be people walking, not just in a doorway or truck parked or equipment parked, it could still come down and damage things. Should it be dialed back or?
We talked about this quite a bit between Kyle and I and the architect. And in the area, so over the overhead doors and the service doors is where we're having it. And then in the back, it's over the service door and where the air handling unit is to catch all of that. In the other areas, we just didn't feel like anything would be there that would cause enough of an issue to really need it. If we find out that those areas need to be improved, we can certainly add more snow guard in the future.
First winter or something, if we realize we want to put more, we can get more. I think we should keep a handle on that.
Yep.
Safety is pretty important. So
We want to make sure this covered definitely the necessary areas on it. Because with a lot of these, a lot of other things that weren't, because we had other ideas, or well, the contractor and the architect had some other things that we wanted to look at, and we just rejected a lot of those just because we didn't feel they were necessary. They're aesthetic add-ons, things like that. So we're trying to make sure we get the cost of the project in line, because some projects, change orders can just keep coming and just balloons the project out of there. And we just want to make sure we kept it to what's necessary at this point.
okay, thank you. What we'll do with these is we'll treat this similar to our consent agenda, and we'll vote on whatever's on there with one vote, unless there's any of them that anyone wants to pull, and we'll remove that from and address that one separately and vote on that specific one separately. So does anyone have any that they'd like to pull off to treat separately?
No, my question is just where does the plus 15,000 come, like, where does that
Right.
fall in our budget stuff?
Sure. Let me get to that. I'll show you exactly where that is. And so as part of the project, there was a little bit of money left over, because we had the street project and we had the public works building
Correct.
project, and we had to meet out all those funds.
We
And
had excess because the street project came in less, right, than we anticipated?
right. But the way the funds were allocated, there was a little bit extra in the public works building.
Okay.
Public Works, yeah.
So got this.
25,000.
Okay, because the funds, so we can't take from the extra street and put it with the building because they're actually separate, even though the bond was for both. Is
No,
that correct?
the bond was for streets. The bond was specifically for
Oh,
streets.
yeah, because we had money. Okay,
Yeah, so if you try to pull this.
sorry, I
Yep, this-
apologize for.
No, this is fine. This is both together. So these are both projects once we finally got them separated out. So for the public works building, we got just shy of 28,000 revenues over expenditures in that, and this would come out of that.
Okay. That answers my question.
So I'd like to pull, if I could, 3 and 6 for further discussion, and we'll vote on that one separately. So with that, if there's no other questions, I'll look for a motion to approve change order 1, 2,
Not
4.
that one.
We still have to approve one, correct? Or
No.
do we not? We don't have to approve one. Okay,
Nope, that was with
All right.
the base bid.
sorry. Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Mhm.
2, 4, 5, and 7.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. So 3 and 6, I think we did a lot of work to keep it, the whole project as low as we could. You know, it's coming in a lot higher than we anticipated. And we decided not to add in that alternative back when we were doing it. So how's that? What's changed? Leaving out the it's a wash money to money, because now we could always just have them do the landscaping and save the 4,000, correct? I mean, I'm coming in even a better price. So what's changed from when we,
So Public Works staff looking at it further, if we can enlarge in that opening between the two, they felt that moving of equipment within the building would be more efficient than having to bring it maybe out and around for everything. It would make it more conducive in winter months, ferrying things back and forth, and then just getting between buildings rather than using a service door between the two halves of the building. They just felt it would be easier to organize things, workflow in that. And so when they looked at that further, because originally they did want to go between, but they said, oh, we can, it's a thing that we can do to help keep the cost down. Not absolutely mandatory type of thing, nice to have. And so then when they were going through the project, Kyle was having discussions with the contractor, and that's where they came up with the possibility of doing the landscape themselves. It wasn't something that was thought of at the start of the project, but doing the landscaping themselves in exchange for that work. So the deduct on 3 would be $4,000, and then the add-on number 6 for the alternative is $4,000. So it's a wash on both.
okay. Like I said, we've already said we weren't going to do it. Now we did. But they got creative and found a way to make it a wash. So that part I appreciate, and that's what's helping me get through it. But
that's why I'm in the same boat as you. If it was just like, oh, let's just add it in after the fact, I'd be like, no, we chose not to. But they found a way to mitigate the cost of it, which in the scope of the project, the big thing was keeping that cost in line. So they got creative. They found a way. So that's where we felt
Still gonna cost a little though with the manpower to do the landscaping, right?
it's an opportunity cost
Yeah.
versus a hard actual cost type of thing.
and you're right, it will. And we have, I suppose we don't have did we look back at that alternative and see if it would have added, what was the cost, what was the amount from the original bid? I mean, are they close in? Are we kind of coming out, everyone's kind of coming out okay on it, or
I'm pretty sure $4,000 was the alternative number 6.
it was?
I don't have it right at my fingertips,
Okay.
but it was alternative number 6 from the base bid.
Okay. All right.
Alternative.
Any other questions for Nick on this? All right. With that, then I'll look for a motion. to
Motion.
Approve or deny change order 3 and 6.
Motion
Second.
To approve or deny.
for 6 and 3.
Yep. To approve them or, yeah, however you want to make the motion, whichever way you want to make it.
Approve.
All right. We have a motion to approve change order 3 and 6. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Post same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 12, which was added, the request for additional funds for the internal investigation. I was contacted by Tim Sullivan today. Isaac has completed all his interviews and is at the $2,500 that we approved not to exceed. If we remember correctly, it was originally a $5,000. We got it down to $2,500 not to exceed because we thought that was a little steep. He's at the point now where he's done everything, but still needs to report out, compile the data or everything, and then come to a council meeting and report out to us. So I'm looking for a motion to request an additional $750, well knowing it won't come to that, but I don't want to have to come back again for the third time. So we're just decided on 750. I'm assuming it's going to be under 500, more closer to 3.
Is that number from their, like, what their estimate is?
That number came from Tim based on the $165 an hour.
Okay.
For Isaac's fee.
Okay.
So any questions on that? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve additional funds for the internal investigation not to exceed $750.
Motion.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. That will take us to reports. Councilmember Ely, anything to report on?
Not at this time.
Councilmember McNeely?
No, I don't think I've met.
And I have nothing myself. I have not met. I thought there was something I was going to mention. I can't think of it now. So I have nothing to report on. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Oh.
We have a motion. Councilmember McNeely, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
You were really excited to get out of here.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a
slow down, Derek.
fast one. Yeah.
I've always wanted to like say no.